Hello all and welcome to the Crafty Mini, and in this one a bit of a chat. So painting will be on in the background and following all the steps that I usually do. There'll be little links in the description and little pop-ups that you can click on if you want to go more in depth in how I'm painting these models and the sort of techniques that I use. But this one's more about like basically how we can get inspiration and why, especially when you're having a bit of burnout or you're not in the mood to paint. So for those who follow the channel, the last lot of videos were all recorded a couple of months back, and I managed to just paint out a load of stuff in a couple of weeks, get all the videos edited and had them all stacked up. And then for the last sort of 3 weeks I've just been sitting not really being bothered to paint and not really feeling it and not wanting to paint anything, despite having various miniatures and other projects that I've even half started and then not bothered with because I've just been getting a bit jaded and fed up with it, which I think it's something that we can all suffer from in the hobby. So the idea of this video is just talking about that and things that we can do to change that and get ourselves up to painting, because we'll buy all these miniatures and things and then we won't sit in and do anything with them, and they just sit there and you hear all these terms like pile of shame and all this sort of stuff. And it's sometimes you'll buy a box set or a particular miniature with all the best intentions to wanting to paint it, but then you sort of sit and go, you might do a little bit of it or just look at it and be like, oh, I don't really want to bother with that now. At the time I was inspired to do, but now I can't really be bothered, and so on. So this is what this video is going to be about. Right, so this miniature I bought from Etsy a while ago. It's a lovely 3D print, 75mm scale, man-at-arms, and I'd base coated it. I'd sat there and I thought, right, I'll do a nice cool bit of heraldry, and I've got various ideas that I wanted to do. Me personally, when I sort of plan a miniature, I will sometimes do things like a little mood board with some colours and whatnot. And I'm sitting there and I started adding, originally it was all like reds and purples. I started painting it and I was just like, nah, I don't really want to do this anymore, not feeling it. And it got put to one side and I did some other stuff, which were in the videos that you've seen over the last few weeks. And this miniature's just been sitting there and sitting there. Now, one of the things I'm working on in terms of an actual series is my sort of campaign of what I've been doing with Range of the Shadow Deep, and I've been playing through that. And it was a couple of days ago, I was just sitting playing the game and it suddenly hit me, the paint scheme on these miniatures, which for those who followed, so these were painted by another YouTuber, the Welsh Miniature Board Gamer. So please go and check out his channel and then send him some support. He's got some cracking stuff, so there's really good unboxings and kit bashes, and he's got got some lovely paint jobs. And I'm sitting looking at the miniatures for the game and I'm like, you know what, that's a lovely colour scheme. That really works, it pops, it's different, it's it's two colours you wouldn't normally put together, the blue and the yellow, and then he's got a bit of green on there and things, and I was like, right, we're gonna have a play with this and do something with it. And I started just putting the paint on. I'd set the camera up for another project which I'd also been a bit jaded about, and I just thought, right, I'll leave the camera running, let's just have a play with this and see what comes from it. And I started painting away, as you're seeing here in the various clips, and it just started coming together. And then there was a point where I was like, you know what, let's get this done, this is going to look really nice when it's finished. And yeah, basically it just evolved from there, and that's why you'll see every so often I'll come back to the original miniature and compare, make sure I'm getting the sort of colours right in the right areas roughly, because obviously the miniature's not an exact replica of the one that he's made and painted, but it's as damn near close as I can get. And yeah, and so I'm following the colour schemes he's picked out there as best I can. So when it comes to actual getting through that block that we can get at times, there's various things we can do. So one of the ones for me is I'll try different projects and different themes. So you might be fantasy, sci-fi. I've even been working through some modern warfare sort of tier 1 miniatures for a game review that I'm going to be doing soon, and looking at that. And then there's other things you can do. So go through YouTube, perfect resource. Go and look at other painters and other people who are doing the hobby and seeing what they're coming up with. You've got Instagram, just general Google searches for things as well, and or even so for example for this, originally it was looking at sort of colour schemes of medieval sort of men-at-arms and seeing what sort of heraldry and things they'd have. and going through that. And it's nice to break it up and look at different things, I find, because if I just stick with, say, sci-fi as an example, I'll get bored very quick and I'll want to go and do a fantasy or vice versa. So definitely use the internet and the resources that are there, and go and look at other people's work and get inspired by them. And if you are copying them, I don't see that that's a problem. If they've come up with something that's really good that you love and you enjoy and you want to do yourself, then go for it. I don't see the issue there. I also try not to, and this is not that I'm bashing on GW, but I try and stay away from Games Workshop stuff. I do very little of it on the channel, because it's so out there and it's oversaturated in the market. And like I've said in previous videos, I struggle with, I'll do a paint job of, let's say, a Space Marine, say, for a commission piece or whatnot, and I'll get bored because I'll keep looking at the box art and what the average sort of paint job is out there, and it's nothing like it because I have a different sort of style of how I paint. Mine's a bit more muted and dark, and I won't do like the really severe edge highlighting and things. And then I'll keep comparing it and go, it doesn't look as good as that, so I'm not enjoying it as much. And you get to a point where I find anyway that I'm not enjoying the hobby, and that's when I'll just sit back and I'll have a couple of weeks where I'm doing nothing and really not getting into it. So one of the things I've started to do is deliberately staying away from the more mainstream miniatures and sort of paint jobs and tutorials, which is difficult because one of the things of doing YouTube, and I completely understand this with the bigger channels, you've got to keep hitting that algorithm, and the algorithm is saying, go and paint the more important stuff and the bigger projects and the bigger brands and whatnot. So it is hard, especially if you want to stay relevant. So I try and look for smaller channels that are doing their own thing. In particular, I was looking for people who are doing like medieval themed and various things like that, and trying to get some idea of sort of techniques, any sort of painting tips, stuff like that, things that I can do, maybe even try new techniques, new paints or whatever it might be, just to freshen it up a little bit. And I think that's something important that we can do as we're going on in this hobby, because you will get jaded, you're going to get fed up. It happens to all of us, to the best of us. It's always going to happen, and it's how you bounce back from that. Now sometimes it is genuine just because you need a break. Let's say you've been at a project for a couple of weeks, you just need some time away from painting, just go and do something different, another hobby that you might have. And then other times it could just be you've been doing the same thing and you're stuck in a cycle, and it's like, I really don't want to be doing that anymore, and going from there. So it's one of those. It's a hard. I think it can be difficult at times getting that balance right. And for me, sometimes I need to jump from project to project, and if that means I have several half-finished miniatures at my desk, so be it, because there'll be a time that I'll come back and still work on it. And I always keep hold of the footage if I have recorded it, just in case. And worst case scenario, like I've always said, you can just strip the miniature and start again if you need to, and go for something completely different. So yeah, that's the sort of like the rough idea behind this video, is go and find various things you want to do, and try something new as well, because you never know, it might interest you. Like I've done, it will be an upcoming video. I'm working on a scale of miniature I've never done before, and that's the Flames of War. For those who know the game, it's 6mm, I think, World War II game. Painting at that scale it was infuriating and annoying to start with, because you can't really do the heavy details that you want to do, that you normally do at, say, 28mm or slightly bigger, the sort of scales that I do. But after the second or third base, it started to hit, and it was like, actually, this is really nice. I can do an entire army in like a day, in an afternoon if need be, because it's just a couple of colours, hit with a wash, pick out some the tiny hands or the faces and whatnot, and go from there. You can spend a little bit more time on the vehicles and the tanks and whatever, and maybe a little bit of a dry brush, add some clump foliage, which looks great at that scale, and you're just knocking out armies really quick. So I think it's definitely worth trying new things. Don't be afraid to give it a punt. If you can get the miniatures cheap off eBay or the internet or wherever, or proxies, just buy them and give it a go. you know, and just don't do the big box sets unless you really are looking at, you want to dive in on this. And this is why you've been seeing some reviews of different games on the channel recently, because you know, these games that I've bought myself and I've just gone, you know what, that looks interesting, let's give that a pop. Like for example, the Forbidden Psalm has been there. That was a breath of fresh air when I opened that box. Really, just all the components were good. It was similar enough to the Trench Crusade that I was in the same sort of mindset, but different enough that I could do and try different things, if that makes sense. Also, don't get worried about painting like the box art. I know for a lot of us, and myself included, sometimes it's really nice and rewarding when you look at the box art and you go, I've done as close to that as I can get, and that's not a bad job. And I think that should, you know, that's something we should continue to do. But sometimes it might be worth just going, you know what, I'm going to put my own spin on this. I'm going to try a slightly different colour or a different effect or whatever it might be, and just having a go at something different. You know, what is it? Variety is the spice of life, or whatever it is they say. So try new things. Don't be afraid to either. And I think another tip is keep it simple, which sounds like we all know that, but I think at times we all get a bit lost in the myriad of like miniatures, different sort of paint schemes, the different paints, different brushes, different techniques. You know, how this person says you should do this and that, but you know, and so on and so on, and it just keeps growing till it's this unwieldy part of the hobby that you just get bogged down in. Sometimes keep it simple. So, like for example, on this miniature, the back of the shield where you're not looking at, I've not spent that much time on it, and it's okay. It's just had a bit of brown, a wash, and just picked out just where I could get the brush in, and I've not bothered with elsewhere because the main focus is the front of the shield. Same with the face. Yeah, I could probably do another layer of highlights, you know, lighten up the skin colour a bit more. Same with the beard, but it's enough, it stands out and it looks different. The armour, it's very simple. It's just it's base coat. This is the sort of padded jerkin I'm on about, a wash, and then I've gone back in with the original colour, and then only on a few selected areas I've gone a bit brighter. You know, certain areas like under into the armpits or the back at the underside of the arm behind the shield, I can't really get my brush in there, so I'm not too fussed. It's got a dark base coat, you can't tell unless you know, deliberately pick it up and look really close, but it's enough to give the effect and the paint job that I want it to. You look at it and you go, well, that's a man at arms in the same sort of colour scheme as the miniatures that Welsh has done for me. And it's simple. It's okay, it's not the best paint job, but this was a breath of fresh air to do. So that's why as well, that's another sort of tip, as it were, is when you do find that thing that you're just going to have a punt at, no matter where it turns out, stick with it. Because I've done this painting and finished it, and yeah, as I say, it's not my best paint job. I'm quite happy with it. It's turned out nice, but it's given me that impetus now. I'm looking at the other things on my desk and going, yeah, I'll paint that. I'll give that a go. I'll do something a bit more loose and a bit more free. I'm not going to stick to constrained colours, or I'm just going to mix stuff on the palette and see where it takes me. Instead of going, I'm going to have these, 30 different browns for this one miniature or whatnot. It's just like, now I'll just chuck some paints together and see what happens. And being a bit freer with it, and having a bit more fun. Because that, for me anyway, and I'm sure there are others out there, we forget that. This is a hobby, first and foremost, whether that's the painting, the building of miniatures, or the actual game itself. It's a hobby. And never forget that. Always have fun with it. Don't have it turn into a chore, because then you're not going to want to do it. This, for me, this is not. YouTube's just like a byproduct of it. For me, this is how I de-stress and sort of relax, is by I'll go and sit and do a bit of painting or whatnot. And so I try every so often. I'll get to this point where I need to just stop, take a step back, and stop taking it so seriously, and just have a bit of fun with it. And for example, with YouTube, if the video doesn't do particularly well, so be it. That's okay. Like my Joker bust, it's not done the best, but I absolutely loved painting that a few weeks ago. I had a lot of fun with it. It's a character that I like the colour scheme, and just cracked on with it. And that's something I think we need to take into the hobby itself. For those of us who are just doing this as a hobby, not for a YouTube channel or any other means, have a bit of fun with it, take your time. It doesn't matter if you've got the perfectly painted heavy metal style army that everyone else has got. If you're happy with it, you've enjoyed it, and you think it looks cool, more power to you. So yeah, I don't know if this has just ended up being a ramble and I'm not really saying stuff here that makes a lot of sense to people. I hope it does, because it's, as I say, for me it's an important part of the hobby, and I think it's nice to just have a refresh every so often, take a bit of time back and do something different. But I'd love to hear what other people think, you know, or has anyone got any tips out there for how they sort of, you know, change things up if they're getting a bit bored and a bit jaded with, you know, with whatever it is projects they're doing. Are they just doing a couple of miniatures at a time if it's like an army or a battle force or whatnot, or do they just blast it all and then don't do anything for a month, or are you one of these people who can just keep going and keep churning stuff out? It'd be really interesting to see what people think. So yeah, by all means leave a comment and share it, and if it's something that I think is really, really cool, I'll pin it or I'll share it in a future video, because I've got a little channel update video coming up soon anyway, so I might even dive into that a bit more in that video. So yeah, please leave it in the comments, because it'd be really interesting to see what people think of the hobby. And also, it doesn't have to be the miniature hobby. You could be into something else like cross stitch, painting, as in like actual paintings, jewellery work, anything. If there's something you do that helps you keep it fresh, so if you're not finding it laborious and the same old, share it if you're a viewer of the channel, or if you know someone who is, ask them and leave a comment, because it'd be really interesting to see, because it's ultimately, as I say, it's the word hobby, it's ours to do what we want with, so it'd be interesting to see what other people think. But yeah, bit of a strange video, a little bit refresher, a bit random, I know, but enjoy. As I say, the paint techniques and things that I've done for the actual miniature, it's what I've done in other videos, so I'll link some other videos that are good to follow for that. Thanks to Welsh Miniature Board Gamer for the original miniature, because that warband is still going strong. Somehow they're all still alive in Shadow Deep, despite a couple of close calls, and I'm still figuring out a way of actually getting that into a series, because I'm not one for, I won't film all the battles like you see in some battle reports. I want to do it in a bit of a different, more narrative sort of way, so I'm still figuring that out. Plus I want to finish the campaign first and see where it goes. So yeah, thanks for the miniature and the inspiration on that, dude. Remember, keep an eye out on the internet and things. You might see a miniature from a game that you've never even heard of, but you just look at it and you go, you know what, I'll give that a go and try it. Why not? You know, you might learn something new. But yeah, thank you all very much for indulging me on this weird little chat / rant, whatever it is, and we'll see you all in the next one.